Hello guys and welcome to another video. Um this one obviously is a bit different. We have a completely different map from the one I use in even alternate future of what if civilization started over. And that is because in this video we're going to look at what I think the Russo Caucasian War is going to look like. Some parts of this map are outdated, whereas some I updated just because we're focusing on one area. Like as you can see, I do have this purple nation was annexed by Mesopotamia, and the 3-point star alliance does exist. However, out here, Red Australia has not taken over this blue country, and this alliance out here does not exist either. So, um, well, let's get into the video. So it starts off with Russia did invade Caucasia, which is really upsetting to me, obviously. They had something like this at the end of the episode when it was revealed that Mesopotamia, Caucasia, and a few other post um God dang it, a few other post Old Empire countries also had it or also are in it, like this Late Blue Nation, these guys, etc. So, we're going to take a look at what I think is going to happen in this war. Alright, so firstly, the first thing I think would happen was despite Mesopotamian forces coming up to fight against Russia, I do think there will be a naval. I do think there would be able to be a naval landing by the Orange team or maybe the Cyan team. But I think this would happen more down here. This way, they can kind of focus from the inside and force Caucasia into a two-front war. Despite being extremely biased towards Caucasia, I am gonna try and keep this like how it would probably actually go. But again, this is also just thing, and I might also do something else with this map after this for the next Monday video. Alright, so we see this here happening. But with the absurd amount of forces in Caucasia, I do feel like they would be able to slightly overwhelm the Russian forces in some areas. But I do think Russia is going to have the upper hand in this war, and would be able to push down again towards the capital. But this is honestly the out of everything that that I'm going to do in this video, I think this is the most likely to happen, and that is Poland joining the 3-point star alliance. Because just a couple episodes back, actually, I think the previous episode, Poland and also Ukraine had lost a major war to Russia, and well, I think Poland's going to be a little salty about that one. So, I do feel like Poland would enter this war. At first, I think they could get quite far into Russian territory. However, I think as at least once Finnish forces start arriving, not like there are many of those anymore, but I feel like once Finnish forces get down here, that alone could be enough to stop just because they're probably going to have Russian technology. Although almost all of Russia's forces are down here, they had to pull some out from up in Finland. Oops. So it's just what I think. All right, but we do see Russia then pushes a bit further south into Caucasia. They're mostly focusing on the coastline, just because then they can push outwards to inwards. However, with Arabian forces and um Emirati forces, I'd say, for this pink team, or maybe Omani forces, they would be able to push the orange team out and again start pushing back against the Russians, pushing them up to here. I do feel like this war is going to go very back and forth. However, I do feel like one side is eventually going to very strongly overwhelm the other. But I gotta open up something real quick. Oh, you guys are getting a sneak peek. Y'all are lucky with that, but let's see, where did I have it? You know what? Open this up. Uh, Oh, that. Alright, there. But now we see the gold team is will start reviving itself, I guess. They're starting to come back from Russia as when in the war against U- or in the war with Russia versus Poland and Ukraine. Ukraine had fallen to Russia completely, and they were also completely annexed. So I do, especially in like the core territories, I feel like they would start to revolt, and I feel like we could see even more countries starting to join this war. Alright, alright. So the first country I would think would join this war next would be these guys down here. I am just gonna add the alliance symbol over them to start. Then I feel like we could see a lot of other nations join this war. One that I think would most definitely join would actually be this dark maroon country right here. But I think we could also see the green team joining this war. So I'm gonna add them in as well. The Caspians would uh maybe they're looking to reclaim some land, but maybe they're not also. Maybe they've got different things in mind. However, yeah, I think we could see Kazakhstan joining this war, as well as Norway, and finally the Farmers Union. I think out of all these countries, it would probably be the Pink Team and then the Farmers Union are most likely to join. In a lot of scenarios that I do with Russia fighting something, I do think, or what I do oftentimes include the Sierra Siberians as one of the countries most likely to join. However, in this case, I don't really think they would join. They could just to reclaim some old lands, but I don't really feel like they would. But we see the gold Ukrainians push in a bit further, and now we do finally see Russia begins to push back against some nations. First country they're pushing back against is going to be Caucasia. So we see the Russians pushing back Asia completely, just because I do feel at this point they're kind of sending more of their forces down here. And I also feel like they would also maybe possibly somehow recruit another ally. And out of every country in the world, who's most likely to join the Russians? Well, of course, it's going to be these guys down here. So, these guys join the war. They're going to start sending their aid over. Maybe support some, no-no stuff in these countries, if you know what I mean by that. Um, alright. So, up here, we would probably see Norway pushing into Finland. Because let's be honest, there's no way this is stronger than this. Plus, like I said, Finland probably has its forces down in Poland. So I feel like this would go quite well, at least at first, with Norway pushing into Finland in the north. However, down in the south, Russia begins pushing back against Poland and is once again able to move in and capture their capital. Happens very quickly. However, Poland will keep on fighting, moving towards the Russian capital. With this, we see the Farmers Union also finally starting to do something as they push in and also aim for the capital of Russia, as the popular theory is if they can capture the capital, then it's most likely if they have the capital, they can get the dictator, and if they get the dictator, well then that's the end of it, probably. So down in Caucasia, we see the Caucasus country is able to push out against the Russians, and the Russians are thinking, we need even more allies, don't we? You see, uh, at least probably just the Emirati nation, maybe these two as well, what are starting to send aid up into these two countries down here. I feel like only those three would, because they're admittedly the weakest in this entire alliance, other than those two. So, whereas then you can have Arabia and Mesopotamia focus with Caucasia. So if we come all the way down here, the first country that would make a move out of these two would easily be the more maroon one. So they would be able to push out around their capital, however, probably not a lot. And I kind of feel like the green team could just be more of a microstate, or more of like a very, very small amount of help. However, what's not very, very small of amount of help is the uh, Kazakhstan nation, as Russia probably should have expected these guys to join the war. Let's be honest. Hmm, if anyone had to have more hatred towards the Russians than Mesopotamia does, it has to be Kazakhstan. It's Kazakhstan or Poland. It's one of those two. Let's be honest. There's no one else who really would. So, you see Kazakhstan push down into the Cyan nation as well. And as these guys are relatively weak, they would probably be able to pierce quite through the nation. However, I do feel we could see at some point this alliance here get involved. However, I really don't think that's going to be very likely. Libya used to have ties with Russia, and then they got absolutely severed. Whoops. And then they got absolutely severed when the Libyan dictator was, or his ship sank out here somewhere. I don't remember where that was. but Russia is still needing new allies. So, go back to the layer I just turned off. Who else would they probably recruit? Persia's like they're kind of sort of good with Mesopotamia, but they've probably got way worse relations with Russia considering what happened with World War V. India, definitely no. Tibet, definitely no. Probably not even these guys up here, even that and they wouldn't provide much. These guys, they already got what they want from Kazakhstan, so I don't think they would join. There's these three Anatolian nations, which I mean they could help, but they probably wouldn't be much. And then we come down to where Russia seems to have a pretty big hold of, which is Africa. More specifically, I think Russia has something to do in Ethiopia. I don't know what it could be, but I have a feeling Russia did something with Ethiopia, and I feel like Ethiopia and their economic allies, oops, I feel Ethiopia and their economic allies will likely join this war just probably for land gains. Obviously not for historical reasons, because if that's the case, then we're getting the whole world involved. But yeah, I don't know. I have a weird suspicion, which and with this, the whole world is gonna raise an eyebrow because everyone knows what happened with World War IV and Somalia. They did some extremely bad things. But we're gonna move up north now, back into Caucasia. And as we see, Caucasia is still getting pushed into again. However, it is not much at all. Although I do think they just captured a major city, yeah, or even two. So they move in, and the Russians move in and also capture this one here. However, we come back to Gold Ukraine, who at this point, I'm going to consider this their solidified borders. And I will start using this brighter color to paint them in, or to paint their movements in. So they move up north. I think we could be able to see some other countries rebel as well, but I don't really think that's too likely. So coming over here, the Kazakhstan will be able to push into Russia a bit further. However, Russia sets up a really good. Like, this is the second narrowest point between Russia and Kazakhstan, so they have like a defensive front set up here, and Kazakhstan's still kind of weakened from World War V. So they'll focus their forces a bit further south, moving in up here, reaching up with the Caspian Sea, taking over this major city and the capital of this like blue nation. With this happening, the orange team's gonna need to send their aid up here, and if it's these two together versus these three or these five with also these guys, I think these guys would be probably easily overwhelmed. If it was if it was just those guys and no one else could join this war, even still, I think these guys would be overwhelmed, maybe. But especially since we've got Kazakhstan here, it's just game over. All right, so we see the Caspians finally doing something as they make a landing out here, and with the help of probably Emirati troops, they are able to move up and capture a major city. There's Palestine and this country are probably helping these guys because they're the stronger. These guys are the stronger two of Caspia and of the two microstates in Caspia or in the Caspian Sea. These guys are the stronger of the two. So it seems it seems like every microstate likes to be on the sea. So here the Lucades, obviously they're on the sea. And these two here, they've got sea access. I don't think there are um any other microstates in the world though. There's probably like some random pixel someone considers like the First Indians or something. But not that any eye can see. So the Kazakhstan pushes down, captures this major city, splitting a Tyrol into three parts. They move into this part especially, closing in on it and cutting and eventually leaving just this major city left. The soldiers will flee out and are eventually left with one pixel. And then that one pixel falls too. So now all these soldiers are floating in the sea. And maybe or maybe not, this has something to do with the previous thing. And they float all the way down to Mesopotamia, and then Mesopotamia sends them or kicks them right out. So they float up and land here in Caucasia. And I mean, this is like the this is the biggest or part of troops that the biggest division of troops this country had. I had to make sure I was using a brighter color. So these are the like largest section of troops these guys had, and most Mesopotamian troops and Caucasian troops are fighting up here. So this is probably going to be quite successful. Now we move up back to Finland. And it's definitely still not going well for Finland, as Norway pushes further in to the country, moving into or boarding the Russians, moving up along the Russian border, because that's definitely a really good idea. It actually is, 'cause if they can separate Finland from Russia, then Finland or Russia can't aid Finland. So then Finland is easier to take out. Plus, Russia's not really sending many troops up here. They've got some bigger issues down south, considering there are four countries invading them. Now, five, once Norway will decide to send its troops into Russia as well. However, most of them will be sent into Finland as they move in, capturing two of the major cities, leaving just the capital left. Eventually, the entire Kola Peninsula will fall over, and now we're pretty much just left with Russia left. Now we come down south, as this was a really big surprise, even for just the whole world as it was. And we see this blue country is able to push into Arabia very well, and they capture four major cities. Five now. As for the screen team, very similar, as they also move up the coast, one of the three coasts Arabia has, which I think is no, Russia has four coasts on like different parts. So I'm gonna count this as one coast, because technically this is a rebellion right now. Well, maybe these guys they have a lot of coasts. Oh, well. Alright, let's continue. Now that I'm getting distracted still. Alright, just back down here. These guys move up. What am I using? Good green. I didn't need to. What's that? These guys move up here, capture this major city, and eventually move up and capture the second capital city of Arabia, since their first one was absolutely destroyed by the meteor that struck right in here. And obviously, these guys are doing this all with aid from old Ethiopia. And we see the first thing that these extremists finally do, as one of their ships has somehow secretly gotten all the way to the Palestinian border, or the Palestinian coastline, and they're able to take over this major city. Oh, that's first thing. Alright, so, so now we come back up to Caucasia as they're able to, one, push out this like blue team, two, push back the Russians all the way to the border, and three, push into Russia. They also like to focus on the coastline as they move up, meeting up with Crimea, pretty much. And these guys will decide to work together to take away the entire Black Sea coastline from Russia. But these guys will also make a secret push into here, and then from there they also push in up and meet with Kazakhstan. Alright. Speaking of Kazakhstan, they force the Light Blue Nation to surrender, and they begin sending some forces down into the Orange Team, where where they or however they focus most of their forces to Russia, as they've just broken through the defensive line right here and captured a major city. They will then move out towards this other major city. However, the general in charge of this made a fatal flaw and forgot to defend this area, which allows the Russians to push in from here, moving into the border of Kazakhstan, and that allows the Russians to push in here as well, moving towards their capital. And obviously, Kazakhstan is a lot further from the Russian capital than Russia is to the Kazakhstan capital. So so Kazakhstan will make the probably the best decision, and they will send all of their forces back from here and instead regroup them right here so they can move up and cut off the Russians, as there are, despite this being like, fairly equal, there are more Kazakhstani forces, Russian forces, although Russia is like a really big or a really populated country. But Kazakhstan is able to capture all of these forces, and this is a major loss for Russia. We now head back up to Finland, as Finland, well, they fell. We s- so we see Norway now pushes into the or into Russian territory. They capture four major cities from Russia, nearing two more, and push up, capturing almost all of this coastline, including this island. They also make a naval landing up here, and another naval landing that is hopefully going to help free the Polish capital, and it does. And Poland is finally starting to see some relief. As Russia is fighting what? One, two, three, four, five front war? What? I definitely think Russia's forces are a bit spread out. So Poland will move up and capture another major city before taking a turn and start heading for their capital. The Farmers Union will also be taking a turn, heading from straight towards the Russian capital to instead do a secret plan, which they had totally not planned the whole time. And they encircle a ton of Russian troops right here. These Russian troops were they're misdirected by a general at first, and this entire area will fall over to both the Farmers Union and Poland, with this part going to Farmers Union and the rest going to Poland. And now the forces work together to in, to march towards the capital of Russia. So, seeing this, Russia will pull most of its forces out from Kazakhstan, because they're the furthest away. So, we see Kazakhstan is able to push into Russia quite a lot, and they're probably going to get their land back. With the the Ukrainians, they're able to push towards the from they're able to push towards the Farmers Union, and they capture five major cities. Which kind of seems like a lot, although they're all like right here. Alright. Now for Caucasia, they move in up into all of this area here, capturing over only one more major city. However, they've pushed back the Russian forces a lot, and they're about to capture two more major cities. Coming back over to here, the Caspians, as in green team, have pushed in even further, capturing a major city and the capital of the orange team, which has separated the orange team into two countries, or two parts, and a lot of people are still definitely more for the maroon team, as nobody really wanted these guys, or nobody here really wanted to be part of the the Russian military alliance, or even just aligned with the Russians. However, now having to fight less front, it's one less front, but more people. This orange team will decide to kind of make a defensive front right here, and this they'll put as many troops as they can, plus pretty much every troop or all the troops that weren't captured from the Cyan team are down here too, and some Russian forces that got uh, or that really just couldn't fight back anymore. All right. But now we see Mesopotamia start redirecting some of its troops, seeing as Russia is beginning to get overwhelmed. So they will send troops to relieve these guys, and Palestine and some Mesopotamian troops will board a ship from right here that sails out to hopefully deal with the extremists. Down south, Mesopotamia also is sending its forces here as they move in to free the free the capital city of Arabia. However, forces from the Green Team are able to hold out in this major city. Up north, it's still not going well for Russia, and I'm gonna be sorry to say this, guys, but I'm not gonna do a peace treaty in this. I want you guys to make up what you think a peace treaty could look like for this war, but I'm myself Actually, you know what? I might do one for like a part two in this, which I would upload next Monday. Although that probably wouldn't go well, because then it would look like um I kind of just copied off it. But or actually, you know what? In the comments, would you guys rather see me do a peace treaty for this, or alternate future of what if civilization started over episode 3 on Thursday? But anyway, we see the Russian capital is captured. Poland is able to push back all Russian troops out of its country, and with help of some Norwegian troops, they're able to push up through here. And for the most part, it's not going good at all for Russia. Actually, not even for the most part. It's just not going well for Russia at all, just in general. There's another major city to Norway. Crimea begins to push up again as well, mostly with the Farmers Union. And eventually, Russia is going to just be split up by the, what, 6 invading nations? Norway's gonna, well, Norway's gonna take control over here, with Kazakhstan then taking control of this, and the rest of it going to be controlled by Caucasia. So now we can move south, as literally every single one of these countries will redirect its forces to right here. And pretty much as soon as this final major city is captured, these guys just surrender. They really thought they could hold their own, but they couldn't, clearly. Right. Alright, pretend the 3-point stars right there. Now, the only members left of this for the Square Alliance are in Africa and a bit in the Middle East, since in WICSO, Mesopotamia extends way down here, that kind of borders these guys. I'm I would say like these guys. Oh yeah, they're in Mesopotamia, but these guys aren't. Just because or I would refer to these guys as Middle Eastern, but I would refer to these guys as Mesopotamian or Arabian, as I more often call them. But with the just giant amount of forces here, the green team is completely pushed out of Arabia, as is the blue team, and it's just not going to go well for them at all. So Arabian or just Middle Eastern forces as a whole begin to move into both of these countries, and realizing as their best hope was now gone, the gold team is like, all right. So what actually we should have done was not do anything here at all, and before anything can or any before anyone leaves or enters their country, they will leave. They will peace out with the 3-point star alliance, leave the square alliance, and leave the war as a whole. And that means only one country remains. All those Mesopotamian ships, or all those actually Palestinian ships, they were. Now there's even more coming. Mostly from out of Mesopotamia, but also some out of Palestine. But they make a naval landing right here, and very quickly afterwards push into this country and take it all over within just a few days. So that will do it for this war, and with that, this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you want me to do a peace treaty for this.